The third line for the Wild is one of the only lines that actually has a spot up for grabs. So who makes it and what do we need from the players already on that line? We'll discuss today on Locked on Wild.
You're Locked on Wild, your daily podcast on the Minnesota Wild. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is happening, everybody? Welcome into another episode of Locked on Wild, your daily Minnesota Wild podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked on Wild your first listen each and every day. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on any new episodes throughout the course of the week. On today's episode of Locked on Wild, Alex Micheletti joins us as we shift our attention now to the third line. We'll lay out some expectations for that grouping, as well as try to figure out who takes the final spot. And then we'll play Like It or Leave It with the Wild logo and Nordy. My name is Seth Topal, your daily Minnesota Wild insider. Alex Micheletti joining us for his usual Monday appearance. And Alex, before we get going, we should give a congratulations out to Mr. and Mrs. Ryan Hartman, who tied the knot over the weekend. Looked like a fun time that included a little bit of a reunion, as looked like Cam Talbot and Jordan Greenway were taking in the festivities, and by all accounts, looked like a fun time from what we were able to see through the various Instagram stories.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, just amazing. But it's always cool when former teammates can get together. They had that special bond, and so yeah, good to see that for sure.
So let's talk about this third line, because we talked fourth line last week, and that grouping is pretty set. Brandon Duhaime, Connor Dewar, Pat Maroon, and as we work our way up the lineup, the second line and the first line are pretty set as well, which leaves the third line, and you've got Freddy Gaudreau, you've got Marcus Foligno, but there's a spot to be had for somebody for that third line. So let's just start ultimately. Who do you think ends up getting that final spot?
The hope for everyone is Marco Rossi to get that spot. We'll see if he can. How much leash he gets from Dean Evison, and if he struggles, how long is he going to allow him to stay on that line? But the hope is that you have Marco on there and producing and helping, getting some secondary scoring for that line.
Yeah, and it is interesting, because I think we want to see him put in a position with some other guys that have more of an offensive skill set, because it screams more of a defensive line for me, having Gaudreau there and having Foligno there as well. And so let's just assume that Rossi does get that spot. Is that a viable combination to have all those three guys together and producing?
I have no idea. I mean, it it's going to be awkward, but they don't want to take Ryan Hartman off that top line, which it would be more ideal to put Ryan Hartman with those guys, but that's not going to happen. It just seems like they like that chemistry between Zuccarello, Kaprizov, and Hartman, but there isn't a whole lot of other options to have on that that last spot. So it's kind of like Marco by default, and at least to start the season, it looks like.
And it's not to say that there's no offensive skill on that line, because Freddy Gaudreau had a career high in goals this past season, so he's had two really nice seasons back to back, and obviously he was a huge part of the Boldy Fiala Gaudreau line. So it's not like there's nothing there, but I think the cautionary tale here is we've seen Marcus Foligno get put into situations, even playing on the top line when Kirill Kaprizov was out of the lineup for a little bit. We've seen him get put into those types of situations, and it just doesn't seem like it works.
No, and as he gets older, it's gonna it's gonna be harder for him to score. We saw the dramatic fall off this past season, so yeah, it's gonna be awkward. It probably doesn't uh, you know suit Marco very well to be successful, and if he does get sent down or scratched, it's like, what are you going to do if you're not going to move Ryan Hartman,
Yeah. No, it's a little bit of a log jam that obviously is going to, over the next couple of seasons, get more figured out because you got guys that are in contract years, in Foligno's case, in Hartman's case. And so, maybe you get a little bit of a bump in production because of that. But it just seems like there are guys that are better suited lower in the lineup that are playing higher in the lineup. I don't know. It just feels very square peg, round hole to me at this point, because I feel like if you would put Hartman with Gaudreau, with Foligno, or with Duhaime for that third line, I feel like you could have a pretty good defensive line, maybe not on the level of the Grief line previously, but I feel like that could be a pretty good defensive line to throw at people if they went that route.
Yeah, 100%. It's and at some point too, you might get Brandon Duhaime on that third line too, just just suiting him. Once Foligno is probably not going to be back for 2024. You get used to that third spot, and then put Marco on the fourth line. But then the fourth line doesn't do Marco any wonders too. So that's why it's just just for Marco, he's one of the most fascinating parts of this beginning of the season. What do they do with them? And in this third line, they're going to need some help to get that secondary scoring. So it's a really important line for this Wild team. You saw the teams that were successful in the playoffs, they got scoring from their third and fourth lines. So the Wild definitely need this third line to be successful, for them to be successful.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in order just to combat what Chicago is going to have lower in the lineup with Nick Foligno, with Ryan Donato and Corey Perry potentially penciled in as their fourth line, put Foligno and Pat Maroon on the same line together and just let them go toe-to-toe with that group. That if those two went toe-to-toe, Perry and Maroon are going at each other, and the Foligno connection, let's just let that happen.
Yeah, exactly. And Perry and Maroon were former teammates in Tampa Bay, so that would be interesting to see them go at it. And at this point in Perry's career too, it's he's fallen off dramatically, but somehow him and Marcus's brother got identical contracts there in Chicago. I guess just be the vets in the locker room vibe guys, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we'll take what we have and try to figure out some things with that third line combo. As you alluded to, secondary scoring going to be at a premium this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we'll see what we can get from that potential combination of Freddy Gaudreau, Marcus Foligno, and Marco Rossi. We'll discuss that as we continue today's episode of Locked on Wild after this. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. Then you can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. If you are feeling optimistic like I am, go ahead and throw down on your Minnesota Vikings to win the 2024 Super Bowl. some Minnesota team at some point is going to do it. So why not be on the front end of that and be one of those people who are able to say, yeah, I put down on the Vikings to win the Super Bowl before the season even started. You can do all of that and more at FanDuel.com. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Once again, FanDuel.com/lockedon. Continuing today's episode of Locked On Wild, once again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. For the everydayers, we have a bonus episode coming up for you later today. Wyatt Guerin joins us to look at some of the names who we could see throughout the season if injuries strike the Wild, which, let's be honest, injuries happen. So there's going to be a need to have a player or two come up to fill in from time to time. We'll tell you the names that you could see as the season unfolds. Seth Topol joined by Alex Micheletti. All right, Alex, let's assume Marco Rossi, Freddy Gaudreau, and Marcus Foligno is your combo. Who's taking the shots if you're getting set up in the offensive zone? Who's shooting the puck in that combination?
Yeah, it's got to be. He's coming off I thought one of his seasons in his career in the NHL. He showed the skill, definitely. Obviously, we saw it in the shootouts, but he had a nice scoring touch this season. For whatever reason, it hasn't shown up in the postseason, but that's another story. But in the regular season, I thought he played pretty well this past season, and he was getting into the in spaces in front of the net, in high danger chances, and and he was producing. So it was really nice to see that from Freddy, because he's such an important player on this team with we know the lack of center depth. It was nice to see him add some more scoring to his just his two-way play, because he's such a great defensive player, and help, like I've been preaching, the secondary scoring. I think he's your guy on that line, because like we talked about, Marcus isn't just scoring as much, and that's a lot of pressure to put on Rossi to score. And so, I think they'll be seeing Freddy a lot get the puck.
If that combination is going to be what you go with, you have to have Foligno then be the battle along the boards guy and the big presence in front of the net, because he's not going to be a guy who can shoot from further out. And so you just camp him out right in front of the net, right in front of the goalie, and say, deflect, or if the puck is rattling around the boards, go hit somebody and go take it.
Yeah, and what Marco is so good at is his vision. That's why he was drafted so high in his hockey, sense and skill. And so, he can be the setup guy to Freddy, and just work with those two guys to help set up. And like you said, Marco can help try to get some tips to Marcus out front, like you mentioned. And it's they're gonna have to work really hard to score. Let's put it that way. It's not going to come easy.
No, there's not going to be a push of speed into the zone like we have seen, like we saw with Fiala, Boldy, Gaudreau, like we see with the fourth line, like we see with Kaprizov. That's going to be a line that's going to have to push their way in and kind of get entrenched and really work at it, because you don't have anybody on that line who really has that bursting speed. I mean, I would say Gaudreau and Rossi are fast. Gaudreau more so than Rossi, but Foligno's not a speed guy. And so it's really going to be like a grind it down type combination if that's what we end up going with. But I got to be honest, I would say of the line combinations, this is the one that probably will not be this grouping as the season unfolds. This may be what we get to start the year, but this is, I would think, definitely the one that sees some changes.
Yeah, 100%. Just with Marco and with Dean liking to scratch him, and you can get in the doghouse pretty fast, and that's where you might have to see Brandon Duhaime move up to that third line and help out more. And as long as he stays healthy, I think it's a spot that he can take advantage of for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because I kind of wonder, I guess I selfishly hope that we are penciling people into lineup spots because that's where they previously were. And then we just see like, well, no, we're going to do this. Like selfishly, I hope that we get okay, no, we're actually going to do this, as opposed to what we've all penciled in. But just by rule of like process of elimination, that's just the combo that we have right now. And
Right.
I don't know. I was pretty high on the fourth line in just looking at where they stack up amongst the rest of the division. And I'll do this later in the week, just see kind of what we're working with. I got to say I'm a little less optimistic for this line than I am for the other three, just because it just seems like a huge unknown.
Yeah, 100%. And they need this line to help out. It's we've seen it in the postseason too, where the teams just focus on Kirill and try to hit the heck out of him. And so you're going to need the second, third lines to help contribute to the offense. And
yeah,
Matt Zuccarello isn't getting any younger, and so the tires start to tread. The tread comes off a little bit, and so this third line, they aren't. There's Marcus is getting up there in a little bit in age, but Freddy's still relatively in. He's younger than Foligno, and then Rossi is obviously very young, very very young still. So
yeah,
yeah,
and there's that patience element with Rossi as well. But I'm kind of the belief, and I think we're going to save this exact question for Jesse Pierce later in the week. Spoiler alert: Jesse
we
will
love
be
Jesse.
making a long-awaited return to the Locked On Wild airwaves later this week. But I think we're going to ask her that exact question because I'm of the belief that yes, Rossi's on the younger side. And so you don't want to throw him out because of 20 NHL games. I also am very much of the mindset that I just want to get an opportunity to see what we're working with. Like that's why you go to a car dealership to test drive a car. You don't just buy a car online per se. You go test it out. You go take it on the road, and it's not just, okay, we're going to do a lap around the parking lot. Like, no, you take it out of the lot. You drive it down Main Street. You maybe take it out into the country a little bit because you want to see how it handles different situations that you don't necessarily get from just your first look at the car. I don't know why that set me off. But we got the epic car rant on today's show. Holy cow!
Yes. Hey, it happens. I'm glad I helped set it up for sure.
Well, that's everybody gets my point. You're not going to know what you have unless you give a representative sample size of more than just, okay, here's 2 games on the top line or in the top 6. Oh, it didn't go well. All right. Back down. It's got to be a representative sample size to see what you're working with. That's all I'm going to say about it for right now. We'll dive further into this as the week unfolds, but as we continue with boot camp, we're going to set everything up to start the week and then break it into more digestible chunks as things go. So that's all I'm going to say because I don't want to get set off again. I'm probably going to, though, because we're going to finish with a little like it or leave it, because Locked On as a channel, all the NHL shows voted on the best logos and mascots, and the top 5 did not include this or Nordy. And so we'll discuss to finish today's episode of Locked On Wild after this. Final segment of today's episode of Locked On Wild. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Wild your first listen each and every day. If you are so inclined, make sure to leave a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify. Let us know how we're doing. We welcome all forms of feedback, and so either on YouTube or on Spotify or on Apple, just leave us a review, leave us a like, and let us know what you like and where we can improve. Like it or leave it. The NHL, as a channel for Locked On, ranked the mascots and logos for every team in the NHL in top 5 fashion. And sad to say, Minnesota Wild did not make the cut either time. As we start off with the logos, Detroit Red Wings, number 1. The Arizona Coyotes, number 2, and this is the more recent, the Kachina, the Coyote with the hockey mask. The newer logo for the Coyotes gets number 2. Then it's Toronto Maple Leafs at 3, Pittsburgh at 4, and the Seattle Kraken at 5. I have major questions with this cluster of rankings. But the Wild did not make the cut. And so let's start with the logo. Like it or leave it.
I've always liked it. I mean, what could you make different than what it is? I really like, it has everything, you look at your hat right now. Everybody that can see it on video, and everybody that's seen the Wild logo, you got the trees on there. So it's got the Minnesota connection, and, I like the color scheme. It's perfect. I wouldn't change it.
Yeah, if there is one area to improve upon, is the jerseys, I think.
Yeah.
Because of just kind of how the color schemes have gone. A lot of green and red, but obviously you've got a lot of green and red in here. And so I have less issue with the logo at all. It just would be nice to see, some tweaks. And we've seen with the reverse retro a little bit more of a callback to the North Star days. So they have done some new things for the jerseys, but that would be the area I would like to see explored a little bit as to make some changes, but not, for instance, the Dallas Stars where they did the all black and then it's just the neon green accents of everything.
That's over the top.
Don't do that. And then they had like all white as well with gray, I think it was. And so don't do that either.
That's what's frustrating too, is teams that had really awesome like original logos and then they go through a whole new rebrand and everything changes. Like the Dallas Stars had an amazing, I liked the green and black that they had before that with the star logo. The old school was perfect. I don't know why they needed to make that change. Sometimes these teams hire like exactly that was perfect. I thought just those were watching Mike Modano and Zubov and Jerry Lettinen and Hatcher, all those guys. It was fun with those jerseys, and those teams are so much fun when they won the cup too. With the controversial goal, they had just the perfect jerseys. So you don't want to do too much.
Boy, they really have made some drastic changes. The Stars.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Apologies to anybody that gets triggered by seeing Minnesota North Stars logos. I should have thrown that before I pop that on screen, but we're both in agreement. Like it for the logo. Mascots as well got a top 5. Gritty, number 1. Honestly,
always.
It should be unanimous. I hope it was. I don't have the official vote tally, but it should be unanimous. Then it's NJ Devil of the New Jersey Devils. I agree there too. I always think of that Sports Center commercial where I think it was Stan Verrett is getting in the elevator. He pushes the button and it opens, and it's just red lit NJ Devil standing in just in the back of the elevator. And he's like, "Are you going up?" And Devil just shakes his head, and Verrett's like, "I'll take the next one."
Just perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement with 1 and 2 for sure.
Then Bernie for the Avalanche, I believe it's a St. Bernard iconic dog there. Howler for the Coyotes, a recent addition as well. And then Wild Wing of the Anaheim Ducks. I would put Wild Wing third, honestly, but no Nordy. What do we think, though, about Nordy? Like it or leave it?
I mean, I never got the whole thing with Nordy, but you have to have something, and the kids really like Nordy. You see him at the games too, pumping up the crowd too. So I don't know, what would you really change it to? So that's one of those where you kind of just leave it, because what would you change it from?
My initial thought was do more of like a grizzly bear, except just in these colors. But I'm gonna Google it right now so that I don't say something that I'm gonna regret. I don't know that Minnesota has a ton of. Do they have grizzly bears? No, not anymore. Okay, there. End of story.
Yeah, so that just we'll leave it to the Bruins.
Boy, there was really a chance that I could have looked really dumb with how that was going to play out. So I'm glad I Googled it before really getting into it. But no, there's no grizzly bears here, so don't do grizzly bear. So I'm good with Nordy. End of story.
Yeah. I'm glad Nordy's safe. Yeah, that's end of story for sure.
Yeah, I'm still hot under the collar about the car lot rant, so I got flustered there. But we like both the logo and Nordy. We could see a suggestion on maybe tweaking the jerseys a little bit, but we'll see.
I'd be in for that. Yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit of a tweak within the parameters of the logo. Something. Just something. Throw it out there within the next couple of years. But this is going to be an interesting week because we have a lot to figure out with this third line. And so you can tune in for all of that as the week unfolds with new episodes here on Locked On Wild. So make sure that you do. Make sure you subscribe, YouTube, and your favorite podcast platforms. Better yet, make sure you turn notifications on so you don't miss out on any new episodes as the week unfolds. You can find everything that Locked On Wild has to offer and then some with new episodes every Monday through Friday as part of the Locked On Podcast Network.